Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Luton.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Hello and welcome to the Rangers Journal. My name is Billy Rankin. A special episode this evening. Obviously, we don't have any football to talk about from a Rangers point of view, but we do have a new manager to continue talking about. So that's why I've reached back out to Forever Never, the Killie podcast again, to send a representative over, and that is Paul Montgomery. Paul, we had Cal on before, but welcome to the pod, mate.
Thanks very much, Billy. You've had a massive downgrade going from Cal to me, but I'll try my very best.
I don't think he said it on the pod, but he said how much of a kind of mentor you've been to him. So don't put yourself down. He's a big fan of you as well. And yeah, I was just mentioning to you before the pod started how impressed I am with the podcast setup you've got. I believe you've got a studio to record that. It looks really good.
Aye, so we go down to Limelight Studios in Irvine, and it's actually a guy called Stu who's a genius, and he's a massive Rangers fan as well. So we've got a lot to thank him for. He's taking it to a different level. So we appreciate that, mate. Thank you.
Well, look, mate, we want to talk about Derek McInnes. Obviously, he was with you for about 3.5 years, I believe. Is that right?
Aye, that's right. So we came in halfway through the season. We were in the Championship and got us promoted. And then he had the 3 full seasons after that in the Premier League. 3.5 seasons exactly. And
I'm just looking at my notes because with him being in the Championship, I wasn't following Killie maybe as much as I'd look for the results in the Premier League, obviously. But who did he take over from? I had it here, sorry.
It was Tommy Wright who would get the job.
Right.
He was there for around about a year. So he took us down the kind of COVID season and then did the first sort of 4 or 5 months in the Championship, and it wasn't going particularly well. So Derek came in the January. And
obviously, you don't replace a manager usually unless, as you say, things weren't going very well. So you were down there. McInnes comes in. What's your reaction to that? Obviously, you'd been at St Johnstone before, been down south at Bristol as well, I believe. So was there much to go on at that point?
So I think the situation that we was in the Championship was that we'd struggled a wee bit, to be honest. I think we were 4th, maybe even 5th, in a slightly false position because we had games to make up when Tommy Wright left. But as you'll be well aware, sometimes it's even more than the results in the park. You just get a feeling that it's not working. And that was very much the situation with Tommy Wright. I think when McInnes got the role, there was just a kind of a bit of surprise in a pleasant way, because obviously we were a Championship team, and McInnes had obviously done pretty well at Aberdeen and left in kind of strange circumstances. It wasn't like they had completely fallen off a cliff. That just seemed to be complete in terms of relationship between McInnes and Aberdeen. So I think generally we felt like it was quite a coup to get McInnes to come to the Championship, and so it proved. They managed to get us up as expected, but it was definitely an appointment that was met by pretty much universal joy and happiness, because some of the names that we were getting linked with at the time, they certainly weren't of Derek McInnes' calibre. So it was a big appointment for us.
So general happy then, I'm guessing the fans. I'm totally forgetting the app. I don't know how it went out of my mind. I was going to talk about him turning us down and to come from Aberdeen, and that really kind of cemented his place with Aberdeen fans. He seemed to have a job for life there, but as you say, strange circumstances means he moved on. I think he also flirted with the Sunderland job, if I remember rightly, back then, and never took it. So coming to use. I guess first things first, who did he bring with him? Because he's brought coaches that he knows to us. So did he bring the same ones to you?
Aye, so that's been a part of the kind of conversation that we'll probably end up having here, Billy. He ended up with quite a large entourage of coaches, and the recruitment guy, Ross Richardson, who came in, who McInnes always said would be his biggest signing. But it was Tony Docherty that came originally as his assistant. And then we ended up with Paul Sheeran and Alan Archibald as well. So there was quite a big coaching team. But when he came in, you could feel the lift that the full place got. Obviously, he's a very, very charismatic guy, and a leader. There's no doubt about that. And you don't hear too many negative things to the people who've worked with him, and the players that have played under him. And I've spoken to some of the players, and I know some of the staff fairly well at Kilmarnock who were really, really full of praise for him for his whole time there. But when he certainly came into the club, you could feel that the atmosphere had changed in terms of the expectancy level and in terms of the maybe profile of the club as well. We went for kind of being a kind of also ran to having quite a lot of eyes on us. So he definitely lifted the club. It also coincided with Kyle Lafferty coming back. I don't think Lafferty comes back to Killie unless it's McInnes is there. He brought in Ash Taylor, who was fairly limited in terms of his actual ability, but for the championship in Scotland at that point, big physical centre half and a leader, and the guys were absolutely instrumental in terms of getting us back up. So there's no doubt about it. He definitely lifted the support and the club in general when he got the job.
And the coaches, how does he use his coaches? You said he had a big backroom staff or a lot of an entourage. What do they all do with regards to the team? I'm assuming you've spoken to some of the players and folk there, but I mean, what role does he give them? Is he just a figurehead of things, or is he doing a lot of the tactics? What do you think it works like?
So I think, as far as I can tell, he is quite hands-on in terms of the coaching and stuff like that, but I think there is a bit of delegation goes on, and I think that's why he's brought in people who have themselves been first-team managers, like the likes of Sheeran and Archibald have got quite a bit of experience, because I think he does like to delegate a bit of responsibility to them in terms of implementing the ideas that he has. I do think, although McInnes is quite, it can be probably quite headstrong, I do think if he's got people in his circle that he trusts, then he does trust them. And I think that's probably been evident with the way the guys have moved across with him. And I do think it's all to do with engendering this kind of mentality that they are a big unit and a big team. I think that's one thing Derek McInnes will do really well at Rangers for, in terms of what, as a club, you appear to need, and as a fan base, when I speak to my mates who are Rangers fans, they want that togetherness and that feeling again. And I do think that's a big part of it. I don't think, in terms of coaching or in terms of what you see philosophy-wise on the park, that they're reinventing the wheel or anything here. I don't think it's like that. I think there is an old-school mentality. It's good fit by men, if you want to use that kind of old-school phrase. And that's why I think he's got the likes of Alan Archibald, who is the kind of more defensive-minded coach. And I think Paul Sheeran's probably the kind of traditional assistant type. And Tony Docherty filled that role as well. So I think it's that kind of coaching team, and they all bounce off one another.
When he came in, did he get the January transfer window at all? Was it too late for that?
Aye, he did, and he brought in a couple of loans. We got Dean Campbell on loan for Aberdeen, who he obviously knew quite well. We get Declan Glass, who came in, who I think is now playing in the lower leagues, maybe at Cove or something like that. And Dylan Tate, who's actually ended up doing really well at Falkirk and now back to Dundee United. But interestingly, after the kind of initial bounce of McInnes coming in, we started to struggle just slightly. We lost 2 games in a row to Ayr and Arbroath. We get knocked out of the cup that was in the Premier League. Thinking somebody else got knocked out of the cup with Dundee United. But we started to stumble ever so slightly in the league. And by the final month of the season, he went back to the tried and tested guys. Blair Alston was back in the team. Stephen McGinn was back in the team, John McGinn's brother. And he kind of went back to these tried and tested guys. And I think that was his success throughout his time at Kilmarnock, that he went to these tried and tested pros. And he brought in another kind of winger, a boy Mackay, who came in. But when the crunch came, he went back to the tried and tested. And that certainly proved to be a successful formula later on as well at Killie.
I've got to say, that sounds a wee bit worrying, because what I was going to ask you was the players that he did bring in at his first window or two, was that addressing the problems that you've seen Kilmarnock having at the time? You said, obviously they had a couple of games in hand, but they still were sitting 4th or 5th. Those players you seem to be suggesting that he actually had to go back to his squad that he already had.
He did, but with the caveat, Kyle Lafferty and Taylor both came in and played pretty much every game, and I think that was their Derek McInnes signings. So really hit and miss across the whole time at Kilmarnock in terms of his signings. Some guys who he brought into the club who performed extremely well for us. But on the other hand, guys, mostly loan signings that he would bring in had no impact. So a real mixed bag, actually, in terms of his business in the transfer windows. And I would include that on the way out as well. There was a couple of guys that we could maybe have got some more money in for that he maybe hung on to a wee bit too long, but it was job done. That's at the end of the day. Like, we can talk these things to death, and we'll both do that being on Football Podcast, but ultimately his job was to get Kelly promoted, and he'd done it. And he'd done it in a fashion that was very memorable, obviously beating Arbroath on the Friday night, last minute winner. So it was job done, and then we were back to where Kelly fans think we belong, which is the top division.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What was the expectation on him then when he came in? You're sitting 4th, 5th in the league. I mean, when we got Danny Rule coming in this year, I wasn't expecting to win the league at all, and obviously we finished 3rd in the end. That's probably where I would have expected us to finish based on where Russell Martin had left us. But were you expecting to still challenge? That was he brought in to basically save the day and get you up?
Oh, 100%. I shudder to think which state Kilmarnock would be in now had we not gone up in that first season. That had to happen, and I think that's why the board did push the boat out financially to get McInnes in, because it was as close to a sure thing as we could probably hope for, in terms of profile and in terms of experience and the type of player he could bring in. So it had to happen, and ultimately it did. There was wee points in the season where I thought we're maybe going to end up in the playoff, but ultimately we got the job done. It wasn't a massive points total, I think. Tally, I think it was 67 points, which I don't think would have won you the league in any of the subsequent seasons. Yeah. But again, I think that's the one thing that I'll probably end up coming back to here. McInnes seems to be able to pull out a big result when he needs it, and that was why I was slightly surprised that Hearts didn't win the league on that last day. And I know the circumstances unfolded in maybe kind of unusual circumstances, but in my time watching a McInnes Kilmarnock team, every time it seemed to be going off course, he would pull a result out the bag and get you where you needed to go. And I don't know how or why he's got that skill, but it was definitely the case the year we got promoted, and that was his job, and he done it.
I'm guessing maybe if you have had conversations with any of the players, you say you don't know how he did it. Is he a hairdryer manager? Is he one that puts an arm around players? I mean, I was thinking, is it David Watson broke through at your team? Is that right? Was he kind of responsible for his kind of rise?
So Watson became a mainstay under Derek McInnes, definitely. He also kind of brought through Bobby Wales, who went down to Swansea. There is a wee bit of probably disappointment how those two were managed towards the end of McInnes' time. I don't think he particularly does trust younger players. Like I say, I think he likes his seasoned pros, guys that have been over the course, and that was certainly the experience we got. But then again, he did throw these younger guys in and gave them their opportunities when required. I just think he's a leader. I think that's what it is. I've been at press conferences where he's got the media people in the palm of his hand. They love him. He's just got that kind of X factor in terms of being charismatic. He makes people feel good in the room, and I do think that he's got an intangible almost, that it's just this thing, this aura that certain managers, and you'll know that for being a Rangers fan, you get guys who have just got a thing. You can't actually quite explain or express what it is. I mean, Walter Smith's probably the best example of that. He just had a thing, and McInnes has definitely got a bit of that in terms of people wanting to be round about him, and I think players just love playing for him. And that's maybe what gets him over the line in these big games.
Budget-wise, how different was it when he came in, being in the Championship? Was there a big ingo? I mean, I realise we're relatively speaking here, but the budget he got in his second season, his first full season, and then subsequently on after that, was he using that money well? Was he on obviously a kind of tight budget with yous, or was he? You said they kind of pushed the boat out, but that was really just to get up, I'm assuming.
Aye, so the phrase used at the time, it was the biggest budget a Kilmarnock manager's ever had. When he came in, he was certainly the highest paid manager. Him and his backroom staff were taking a massive wage for Kilmarnock's position in place financially and in Scottish football, and he was definitely very, very well backed. The problem we had in the first season back up was quite a few of the players had been given 2-year deals when we'd been relegated. So some of the guys that they brought in weren't necessarily McInnes' types, and he made a point of saying that after some of the guys had left the club. But in terms of the money that he got, he definitely had. He was very, very well backed. I mean, Kelly were paying fees for players, and Robbie McCrory being being one of them, who had obviously been at Rangers. Lewis Mayo, there was a fee paid there, which is just unheard of for a team like Killie. We just don't pay fees. It's just not something that happens at the club. So he definitely was really well backed, relatively, obviously, in comparison to previous managers. And I think that's probably one of the reasons Killie have found themselves struggling at the start of this season, because the budget had to be cut drastically after kind of having a really poor season in his last season before he went to Hearts.
And regarding the kind of the tactic side of it, we obviously, Rangers usually have more of the ball. I hated playing a McInnes Kilmarnock side, because you know what you're going to get. That's though when he's playing against a team that's expected to dominate. How does he play differently when he's expected to maybe be the one that's expected to win?
This is where I've maybe got some bad news for you. I think McInnes is the ultimate pragmatist in terms of tactics. He loves physical players. That's his thing. That's what he used to say every press conference in Killie. He wanted to build the team around about physicality. Obviously, the budget's going to be completely different at Rangers, as is the expectancy. You're going to be dealing with a higher standard of player. I do remember McInnes' Aberdeen sides coming down and being really decent to watch, like pace on the wings, goal scorer. The likes of Adam Rooney was up front, but they had guys like Kenny McLean playing, and Shinnie and Niall McGinn and all that, really decent players. But at Kilmarnock, certainly when we were at our best, it was quite a rigid 4-4-2. Sometimes we would play 4 centre halves across the back.
That's very Walter.
That would be quite a normal event. 2 sitting midfielders, again with physicality, maybe the likes of Liam Donnelly and Brad Lyons. And then everything came for the wings. We had Matty Kennedy, who was a very good player, and obviously Danny Armstrong. And then 2 physical centre forwards, Big Kyle Vassell and Marley Watkins. And when we found that formula, we were really successful with it. And at times, it was good to watch, because it was loads of crosses into the box. We were getting after teams, and like you say, custom made for playing the old firm, when you're not going to have the ball, making it horrible for them. But I actually can't really speak too long on what it's like to dominate possession. It was just something that never really happened. We were very much a counter-attacking team, and very good at it as well when we got it right. But that would be my concern if I was a Rangers supporter. How are they going to impose this stuff? How are they going to break teams down? Because that wasn't the Derek McInnes that I seen. He was very much a pragmatist and based on physicality.
Yeah, big. So I'm guessing that 4-4-2, is that what you're suggesting, with big players?
I think that was when you get the best out of Killie, definitely. A 4-4-2, an old school 4-4-2 at that. 2 wingers getting crosses into the box. The only thing that would maybe be slightly different was he would use the left-footed player on the right and the right-footed player on the left.
Yeah, inverted. Yeah. I don't think that's technically inverted, but I know what you mean. Playing with the wrong foot.
But and 2 big physical strikers and staying in games as long as they possibly could. Don't get me wrong, it worked brilliantly for a 6 or 7 month spell when we finished 4th. And then I think the last season, he started to almost get too cute. He started with a fullback called Corey Ndaba, who then went to Serie A, who played very well, either playing left back or sometimes left wing back when McInnes was changing it. But all of a sudden, he started playing centre midfield. Nobody could figure out why. And I think McInnes started to kind of stray for the formula and overcook it a bit. Killie didn't have the players for that. Might be totally different at Rangers. Might be totally different. But I would say that the best stuff we played was definitely that 4-4-2 spell.
I'm just wondering with what you're saying, if he's maybe just got a shelf life, which is maybe 3-4 years, and then I don't know. If you're in a job that long, you start to experiment to make it more interesting for yourself, I guess. But the same kind of thing with Aberdeen. He's there 5 years or so, and then then I'm not playing particularly well, and he leaves, and then you're telling me a kind of similar thing with yourself.
I think it's literally that. I think the McInnes and Kilmarnock marriage was a successful and fairly happy one, but when he went to Hearts, we were done. Like, there was no doubt about that. It was just the circumstances happened. The Hearts came in for him, and it kind of broke down a wee bit earlier than it should have. But there's no doubt in my mind McInnes would have left that season anyway for that exact reason. Right. It was just we'd kind of reached the end of it. We'd completed it. He'd done everything he could, and it had went slightly stale. And I think 3.5 seasons out of a manager in modern day, it's not a bad return. So I think you're spot on with it.
This is one of my last kind of section of questions, but you mentioned him leaving then. So, what was the fans' reaction to him leaving? Did you think his time had run to an end? Is that the kind of feeling most of the fans had? I mean, I think was he not on a longer deal, so you got a bit of compensation for? He was contracted to 2027, so you got a bit of a compensation thing for him. Were you happy with that?
I think it was just a shame the way that it unfolded, because had he just seen it the season, and then after the season ended, the Heart stuff happened, I think he would have went with a pat in the back and probably been made to feel really welcome. But the final week that he had, it kind of played out in the media and it wasn't great. I think Kelly can share a wee bit of the blame for that, because we allowed it to kind of happen a wee bit longer than it needed to. But there is a bit of ill feeling towards him because of that ending. However, I think maybe with time it might mellow a wee bit. But there's no doubt about it, and I think that was what was annoying Kelly fans, Hearts fans, saying, of course he's going to leave for a bigger club. No question of that. Like, Hearts are a far bigger club than Kelly, far bigger crowds, and can pay a lot more money. And evidently he did the right thing, and they nearly won the league. But it was just the manner in which he departed, I think, that left a wee bit of a sour taste.
Looking at the squad when he came in, obviously different circumstances. You're in the championship, but how did it look? Was it healthier than when he came in? Has they developed? He developed a couple of young players you mentioned. How he's looking when he left?
It was the end of the cycle. Like there's no question. I think that in terms of the players, some big players left as well. The likes of Kyle Vassell, who was a big favourite of McInnes, left, and Joe Wright left. Obviously, Stuart Finlay left. So it was a massive rebuild last season, and it didn't go particularly well until McCann came in. So it didn't leave us in the best nick financially or playing wise.
And I guess with that, the players that he not develop. Well, yeah, let's talk about the young ones. He's never got the money back you were expecting just because he held on to them too long. I mean, we had that way Morelos, I think, and maybe one or two others. Ryan Kent, for instance, maybe could have got more or got money for them. Full stop. Was he guilty of just holding on to these players instead of cashing in?
Aye, and I think the Watson one in particular. I mean, David Watson got Young Player of the Year ahead of Lennon Miller, right? And when you consider the trajectory Miller went on. And the money Motherwell got, when you now see that David Watson went on essentially a free or a development fee to Bolton, that's the one that kind of really stings. And I don't think McInnes managed it very well. He didn't play Watson as often as people wanted them to play, so that was a wee bit disappointing.
Is that petulance?
You can't make a player sign a deal. You know what I mean? They was offered a deal and he didn't do it. So I don't hold McInnes personally responsible for that. A lot of Kelly fans were pretty annoyed at the way that unfolded, but you know what it's like. Young players, there's agents in their ears and they'll be telling them just hang off and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say McInnes was one for really bringing players on too much. He definitely gave Watson his chance, but it was only to a point. He never really fully trusted them. But again, maybe the player shares the responsibility for that.
If I can turn on to what maybe Rangers fans should expect, there's a question. What should Rangers fans expect?
So again, I'm looking for the outside in here. There is no doubt in my mind, McInnes will make Rangers better to a point. Like, that's what I would say. I think, depending on what Celtic do, obviously what Hearts do now as well, which is a kind of a different sort of aspect to it. I think Rangers will be in every game. I don't think Rangers will ever lose heavily. I don't think they'll drop points at home anymore. I think Ibrox will turn back into a fortress. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if Rangers went unbeaten at Ibrox. I think that's that. McInnes has got a history and a natural way of bringing people with him. Rugby Park became a fortress. Tynecastle was the same. There's no reason for me to doubt Ibrox will follow suit. His away record let Celtic win the league, in my opinion, last year, because the away record was so poor towards the end of the season, and his away record at Kilmarnock was actually unbelievable how bad it was. I mean, we were going 15, 16 games without winning away from him in the league and stuff like that. Crazy. So I expect your home form to be fantastic, and I would expect the away form to be patchy. But in terms of I think McInnes is capable of winning something with Rangers, absolutely. I don't necessarily think will be maybe great in Europe and stuff like that. I think the focus will be domestically. He loves homegrown players. I think that will be the message. But I think you can expect really good home form, and I think you can expect a physical and competitive team. Whether or not that's enough to go and win a league. But if I was betting on Rangers winning a trophy next year, I would say that he's will, but it might be a cup.
But fair dude. Well, I want to touch on that away form to try and find out if the blame lies with him or where the blame lies in. What was going wrong? What were you, as fans, what were you saying when you were going on this 14, 15 game run?
Honestly, I think Kelly had the worst away record in the world at one point. Like, genuinely, like, it was that bad. His second season in the Premier League, we were okay, but our away form was all right. It was something like 7th or 8th best. But his last season, it was away back then. It's obviously the plastic pitch is the elephant in the room there slightly,
right?
Because we had that, and I think McInnes did use that to his advantage. But it was bizarre. It was just bizarre, and I think same as winning became a habit, and the confidence became a habit at home. Away from home, it went the other way. And as soon as you went a goal down, it didn't matter who we were playing. You just had no confidence that Kelly were able to come back. That's what I will say. I didn't always find his in-game management to be the best.
Right.
And quite often, he would maybe persist too long with players that you could almost see were like struggling. But he was one of the favourites. But the away thing was absolutely bizarre. And it was quite hard to explain because generally the home form was fantastic. But like I say, when we needed it, he would go and get that result. Like, we needed to stay up, and he went up to Dundee United and beat them 3-0 the year Dundee United went down. Then we stayed up. And then we had a really big win up at St Mirren the year we came fourth. So he did have that in the locker. And I think that's a really, really good thing, if I was a Rangers fan, that these results are in him and they are in the team. And maybe that's why he gets them, because he does trust his players and he does keep going back to the well with them. But I do think that was his major strength. When he started tinkering, when he started playing this kind of a hybrid 3-4-2-1 type thing, you're thinking, you're overthinking it here. I think if he stuck to the formula all the time, certainly with better players that will have at Rangers, then maybe that away form thing will change.
I was going to say, because we kind of praised him on this pod when he was a Hearts manager, when he made I think did it bring Cammy Devlin on at half time against us? Not that you were maybe watching it, but there was some change he made in midfield, and then Hearts come back and win 2-1, and we kind of praised them through gritted teeth, I guess, but for making those changes. But I think it was one of the commenters at the time actually said it was the most obvious change to make. So it wasn't like he came up with some, reinventing the wheel type thing. It was just an obvious, we're getting overrun in midfield. He put another midfielder in there. But I had a couple of questions here on in-game management, and you've kind of touched on it a wee bit. But when things aren't going right, does he more often than not make the right decision or the wrong decision?
That's a brilliant question. Really 50-50 for me. A lot of the time, it seemed to me like he'd picked the wrong team, and that worried me. When we would maybe go away from home, and you'd think, why is this guy now playing after being out for a few weeks? Or, we had a joke about it on the podcast that it was like the tombola when that first season back up. He didn't know who was going to play. Sometimes he was changing the goalkeeper. Sometimes it was a centre half at left back or whatever. So a lot of the time it was quite confusing, and I do think he was overthinking it. However, like you say, that was in the locker. I just think he's such a mix, McInnes, like for good and for bad. He almost presents as extremely confident, but then at times actually shows that he's maybe a wee bit too tentative, and his judgment isn't quite right. But again, that's coming from a Kelly perspective. Obviously, getting more right than wrong last year at Hearts. I would expect him to do the same at Rangers, to be honest. But a real mixed bag. Having said that, totally surprised everybody on a couple of occasions. He brought in Marley Watkins and played him up front himself, and Matty Kennedy came in for the left and played in a number 10 role and was great, but then we never seen it again. So a real mixed bag on that one. So I wouldn't like to guess if it's going to be for better or worse.
We had that with Clement. He would stumble across a good formation or a good partnership or whatever up front. Like I think even Danilo was one of the players that was playing well with another striker, playing like two strikers up there. And then as soon as he had a chance to revert back to what he liked, he went back to that without persistence. So I'm worried that we've had recent exposure to a manager like that, and we're maybe going to get the same with Derek McInnes. Look, you've been in press conferences with him, is that right?
I have, yes, a few times.
So describe him. That you said he's got people eating out the palm of his hands, and he's just a likable guy. What? Try and describe that. Try to quantify that for him if you can.
So I think he's extremely personable and very charismatic. So a lot of football managers, they come in, they sit down, they don't want to be there. Like it's no part of their nature. Derek is obviously quite a flash guy. You know what I mean? He obviously thinks quite highly of himself, rightly so, maybe. But
I like that though. I like that.
I don't mind that, especially for a leader. And I think he's taking on a role at Rangers, he's going to need to be robust. He's going to need to take some critique. And I think McInnes can do that. He certainly he seemed to have a bit of knowledge of everybody in the room, and had a wee glint in his eye. He was certainly quite good at giving people a wee bit. And it was definitely a few times and a few things I've heard when it was off the record stuff that would just bring people in a wee bit, and then they would go, right, I'll ask you that again. Can you give me the printable version almost? And he would do that. Things to do with the referees getting assigned games and stuff that I heard that never made the papers. I think that says loads. If they didn't have that relationship with McInnes and he wasn't giving them something, they would just go to the paper with it. You know what I mean? They would expose that. So he was very, very good at that. And again, extremely just charismatic, just a good guy to be around about. When we were over in Tromsø, when Kelly were in Europe, we were all drinking in a pub right across the road from the hotel. We saw the players coming down the hotel and getting into the bus. And we're all obviously, there was like 150 as I were in the Arctic Circle and singing the songs and cheering. McInnes sees the support, waves over, puts his bag on the bus, comes back off the bus, comes out of the pub, and gives us all this big kind of G up, not quite a pep talk, but he's like, come on, we can do that. And like, just, this guy, it's hearts and minds. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This guy knows what he's doing here. And there was plenty of Kelly fans who didn't like him as a person because he can be a wee bit flash. But I think we things like that really kind of endeared them to the support. So I think he is very, very good politically, if you like, and that might stand him in good stead at Rangers.
Well, let's just say that I think a lot of the Rangers fans are crying out for somebody to maybe speak out about some decisions that have went against us that seem kind of baffling time and time again. Your goalkeeper can get kicked in the head. You can get brought down in the box and not get a penalty for it in a cup final. The ones, and I'm sure you'll have, referees are awful in this country, in my opinion, and I'm sure you'll have many things yourself that you think the club should speak out about. Derek McInnes under a different spotlight at Rangers for these kind of comments. If he had to say something, it's going to be all over, the newspapers and everything. How do you think he meets that challenge, handling this extra pressure now that he's got in the kind of goldfish bowl of Rangers and Celtic?
So that'll be very interesting to see. I mean, I think that's the difference. And maybe that's why some of the Kilmarnock support never quite took to him, because there was always that feeling, and there'll be maybe supporters watching this who think this is the case, that McInnes maybe thought himself to be that wee bit above being the Kelly manager, that he was almost doing us a favour by being there. Okay. I've spoke to people who know him really well, and they say that isn't the case. So you've kind of got to take that to people that know him. But I do think he's a very, very confident human being, and I do think he will hit the right notes with the Rangers support. He obviously wants to be the Rangers manager. Like that, that's his dream job. I know folk have been saying about the Scotland job coming up now. I still think if McInnes gets the opportunity to do both, he still goes to Rangers. I think that's the job he wants. He's obviously a Rangers supporter. He's played for the club. He knows how it all works. And I think he's mega experienced now in fending off this stuff and sort of managing narratives with regard to things like decisions on the park, with regard to maybe getting presented certain questions in press conferences. No doubt in my mind, McInnes is very, very well equipped to deal with all that stuff. Whether or not that ends up translating onto the pitch and use winning trophies, up for debate for me, I'm not sure. But I certainly think there'll be a honeymoon period there that maybe Rangers managers haven't maybe had in the past because of that link, because he knows the fabric of the support, he knows the fabric of the club, and he's definitely no fear to put across a siege mentality. He was doing it at Hearts, us against them. And again, I'm looking for the outside in, and I don't have any skin in the game here, but I would say that would be a big plus for Rangers, you know what I mean? Given the last 15 years you've had the supporters, you're probably wanting somebody to galvanise it and batten down the hatches and go, right, we're after this now. And 100%, like I say, whether he's winning, and I don't know, but I think you've got the right guy to create that atmosphere.
It's just he's. I think. Well, I don't want to say anything too controversial. I don't want to get clipped for anything, but I think it was a very interesting end to the season that made him, or he came out not winning the league. A few minutes away from doing so, and I just didn't hear anything from him about it. And you think he must be raging. He must be absolutely devastated the way the season ended. So. And he never said anything. I think a lot of Rangers fans would like a manager who's prepared to come out and go and call it like we see it, at least.
I think he stopped himself because of the situation that was maybe unfolding. Because there's no doubt in my mind, I think had McInnes stayed with Hearts in the season, the pre-season as it's been has been different. I think he would have been out all guns blazing. I think it's maybe a bit of experience shown there, because there's no doubt in my mind. I think he was absolutely fuming, raging. Some of the comments that he's even been cited for, I think now with regard to the penalty that happened up at Fir Park and all that. So I think I don't think you'll have anything to worry about in that front. I think he'll be front and centre now that he's secure in the role he wants, and he's definitely. I think he'll definitely be that kind of figurehead in terms of speaking his mind and speaking on behalf of the support and the players.
And regarding going back in for players, did he bring any players from old clubs? I think he's mentioned he got one for Aberdeen at least. Does he shop in these old markets?
Oh, big time, man! Aye, we had loads of ex-Aberdeen players. That was his kind of go-to. And again, I don't think Derek McInnes. I might be wrong here. I don't think McInnes, in his 3.5 years at Kelly, signed somebody whose first language wasn't English.
Right.
Like it was all British, English-based players who could fit in straight away. The only difficulty was that sometimes, particularly loan signings, just didn't work. He brought in Calvin Ramsey for Liverpool. We were excited about that signing. Brings him in, does he play him? I feel like it was things like that would happen quite regularly, but he'll definitely go back to the well. That's why I'm no surprised that Shankland has been there. I know that'll happen before McInnes as such, but wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if another couple of Hearts players rock up at Ibrox. I think that's definitely his. That you're already seeing it with the boy McCrory, who played with him before. I think there'll definitely be a bit of that.
Well, we've got, as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm concerned, they've got good relationships with the clubs, Kilmarnock and Rangers. Obviously, you've got Neil McCann there. You've had Bailey Rice just join you. How are you feeling about that?
I'm delighted. I mean, if it goes anything like Finlay Curtis went, then we're absolutely buzzing. Badly needing some cover in that area of the pitch, and he seems to be a highly rated young player, and he'll definitely get game time. And I think Kilmarnock now are a completely different beast to Kilmarnock this time last year. They're playing the right way. He'll get game time, and he'll be very well coached, I think, for both Dodds and McCann. And he's got some good senior pros running about him. There's a good feeling about Kelly just now. I'm confident that Kelly will do really well next season. So, it's an exciting one for us. That'd be helpful for us, Billy, for the night for our podcast. What kind of player are we getting with Bailey? What do you think yourself?
I mean, we've not got a lot to go on because obviously he was injured as well. But I mean, I think when he came on in the Manchester United game and he stood up like any first team, 10-year player with Rangers, whatever. I thought he showed himself very well. The games I've seen him in the flesh, I feel he's very good. I think he's very, he wants to progress the ball forward. He can be quite aggressive as well. And now he's a wee bit older than when the last time I've seen him. He's got a bit more of, I don't mean first team experience, but he's a wee bit older and probably a wee bit more mature than when he was with, initially kind of breaking through. I'm sad that he's not staying with us. I was glad he was signing another contract. I know he probably wasn't going to get the game time, but like Finlay Curtis, I wanted them around because I felt they could come on and make a difference. I know Cal was gutted that Finlay Curtis was coming back to us and it was unlikely to get another loan out with you. I just didn't think it was ever on the cards. Same with us and Mikey Moore. We would have loved to have Mikey Moore back. But with Bailey Rice, I think what you're doing is an absolute solid by taking him. And, he's going to get that game time you mentioned. I'm just looking forward to getting him back, mate.
Well, I think in terms of Curtis, I was so impressed with him. Like, you expect when you're getting a young winger in for a club, you're expecting maybe flicks and tricks and a bit of pace, but so physically robust. Like, such a talented young player, and bought into it and all. Like, he felt like a Kelly player. It wasn't like, there's a bit of standoffishness. He went straight in, even on his social media stuff, and he was meeting people and all that. He bought right into it, and he did extremely well. And I'm very confident that Finlay Curtis will, if he's given the opportunity, be a really, really good player for Rangers, and he did a great job. So we're obviously hoping it's very similar for Bailey Rice.
Yeah, if I don't, when's your pod tonight? Was it 8 o'clock? Did you say?
Aye, 8:30. Aye.
8:30. Sorry. So I'll see if I've got the graphic we used for the kind of player scouting for Bailey Rice. If that maybe helps you out a wee bit and to get some knowledge on him,
that would be great, mate. That'd be superb. Thank you. Take your graphics on loan and all. That's what we'll do. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Please let people know your socials or where they can get to watch your pod.
Aye, so we're Forever and Ever, the Kelly Fans podcast. We're on X, FEAE Pod, and we're on YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff. So been quiet for the last few weeks, but things starting to pick up pace now that Scotland are at the World Cup and pre-season starts for Kelly on Wednesday. So I appreciate you asking us on the night, mate, and we'll be chat again later on in the season.
That'd be great, mate. Yeah, totally. Again, thank you very much for coming on, Paul. I do need to mention our sponsor, so give me a second to do that. It's the Bluebells Bar in Puerto del Carmen. They are the only Rangers bar out in Puerto del Carmen, so go in there and tell Kenny we sent you. Eat, drink, chill and party. They show all the games. They even show a couple of podcasts as well. So go in there and they'll look after you. Paul, as I say, great talking to you. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Derek McInnes does. It's been great to get a kind of inside knowledge from someone who's watched a team that he's coached for 3.5 years, seen what he's been able to do. Obviously, I feel he's improved you, got you up. Was it 4th in the league he finished?
Aye, that was outstanding. The second half of that season was very, 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 very impressive. The only problem was it kind of fell off a cliff in his last season for a few different reasons. But he certainly ticked the boxes for a lot of the things that he was tasked with at Kilmarnock. Don't expect free-flowing football, but I think you can expect a physically robust team that will be competitive all the time, and certainly with a bigger budget and certainly the access to maybe better technically players. There's no doubt that, especially maybe for a couple of seasons, I think McInnes will have his competitive, but time will tell.
I'm a wee bit worried. You say these things. Although as Rangers fans, we always go, we don't mind if we win 1-0 every week. But when that actually happens, I don't actually think we enjoy it too much. But yeah, winning 1-0 every single week wins us the league. Then McInnes will be a success. So looking forward to see who he brings in and how he starts the season. I think he will get longer than say a Russell Martin would have got. I definitely think he's got more clout with the Rangers fans. I've seen what he did this season with Hearts. And only just missing out in the last couple of minutes of the season. So I think you'll get a bit more time, and I'm happy with that. But Paul, again, thank you very much for coming on, mate. I'll reach out to you again if we ever have any other crossover, and please feel free to do the same if you're taking any players off us on loan again in the future. So always happy to either myself or one of the other guys in the journal to help out other pods as well. So thanks again, mate.
Thanks,
all I need to say is everyone that's been in the comments, thank you very much. People watching, thank you very much for watching. Every night it's Rangers Journal night, and we will see you, I believe, Wednesday, Thursday night. Look out in the schedule on YouTube. The Q&A show, Jock's going to be doing that. Dave's Tactics show is going to be delayed this week, but we'll get back to you on that one as well. And then the Ibrox channel on Friday at 6:30, I believe. So please check us out then. Yep, guys, every night is Rangers Journal night. We'll see you soon.
Bye.